The night air was thick with the scent of roses and rain as Eva swept the last petals from the shop floor. The world outside her window was quiet, the kind of silence that made her feel safe, cocooned in the gentle glow of her little flower shop. She hummed softly, thinking of nothing more than a warm bath and a good book. But then a flicker of orange caught her eye, a strange, unnatural light dancing across the glass. She turned, heart skipping, and saw smoke curling from the old hotel across the street, black and angry against the night sky. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder, but Eva didn't wait. She dropped her keys, bolted from the shop, and sprinted toward the chaos. The heat hit her first, a wall of fire and fear. Flames licked at the windows, glass shattering as she pushed through the front doors, coughing, eyes stinging. The lobby was a nightmare of smoke and confusion, shadows darting, people screaming. She called out, searching for anyone left behind, her voice swallowed by the roar. Then she saw him, a figure slumped against the far wall, half hidden by smoke. His face was obscured, but his hand reached out, trembling. Without thinking, Eva rushed to his side, grabbing his arm. His grip was desperate, strong, as if he was clinging to life itself. She tried to pull him up, her heart pounding, the world narrowing to the two of them. The fire crackled closer, heat searing her skin, but she refused to let go. "Come on," she gasped, dragging him toward the exit. He staggered, leaning heavily on her, his breath ragged. The flames chased them, hungry and relentless, but Eva pushed forward, every muscle screaming. They burst through the doors just as the ceiling collapsed behind them, the night exploding with sparks and ash. Outside, the stranger collapsed at her feet, coughing, his face still hidden in shadow. Eva knelt beside him, adrenaline surging, her safe world shattered. She didn't know who he was or why fate had thrown them together, but as his hand clung to hers, she sensed her life would never be the same, and somewhere in the chaos, she felt the story was only beginning. Eva's arms trembled as she half-carried, half-dragged the stranger across the cracked pavement, her lungs burning with every breath. The world outside the hotel was a blur of flashing lights and shouting voices. Paramedics rushed forward, but as they reached for the man, he stirred, his grip tightening on her wrist. For a moment, their eyes met. His gaze was dark, wild, and full of secrets. Then, as if some silent alarm had gone off, he pulled away from her touch. "Wait, sir, you need help," a paramedic called. But the man staggered to his feet, ignoring the hands reaching for him. He moved with surprising strength, weaving through the chaos, his face turned away from the crowd. Eva tried to follow, but a firefighter blocked her path, guiding her toward an ambulance. "You're in shock, miss. Let us check you out." She nodded numbly, her eyes searching the crowd for any sign of the stranger. It was only when she looked down that she noticed the handkerchief clutched in her fist. It was stained with blood, his blood, and embroidered with a symbol she didn't recognize, a silver wolf's head entwined with a rose. The fabric felt heavy, as if it carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken stories. Eva's heart pounded. Who was he? Why had he run? And what did this symbol mean? The questions followed her home, clinging to her like the scent of smoke in her hair. She showered, scrubbing her skin raw, but the memory of his eyes, haunted, desperate, almost pleading, wouldn't wash away. She tried to distract herself, making tea, folding laundry, but every time she closed her eyes, she saw the flames, felt the stranger's hand in hers, remembered the way he vanished into the night. She sat on the edge of her bed, the handkerchief spread across her palm. The symbol seemed to shimmer in the lamplight, both beautiful and ominous. Eva traced the threads with her fingertip, wondering if it was a family crest, a secret code, or a warning. She thought about calling the police, but something stopped her. Instinct, maybe, or fear, or the strange sense that she was now part of something much bigger than herself. Outside, the city moved on, sirens fading into the distance, the world returning to its usual rhythm. But Eva felt changed, as if she'd stepped through a door she couldn't close. She lay awake, listening to the rain tap against her window, replaying every moment of the fire. The stranger's face remained a blur, but his presence lingered, a shadow at the edge of her thoughts. She wondered if he was safe, if he was hurt, if he would come back for the handkerchief, or for her. The uncertainty gnawed at her, a restless energy that wouldn't let her sleep. She turned the symbol over in her mind, searching for meaning, for answers, for any clue that might explain why her quiet life had been shattered in a single night. As dawn crept through the curtains, Eva realized she was no longer the woman she'd been yesterday. The world felt sharper, more dangerous, and infinitely more mysterious. She had saved a stranger, but in doing so, she had opened a door to secrets she couldn't yet imagine. And as she drifted into a fitful sleep, the handkerchief pressed to her heart. She knew this was only the beginning. Somewhere out there, the stranger was still running. From the fire, from his past, maybe even from himself. But Eva sensed their paths would cross again. The story wasn't finished. In fact, it was only just beginning, and she was already in too deep to turn back. The morning after the fire, Eva's flower shop felt different. The familiar scent of lilies and fresh earth couldn't mask the tension that clung to her skin. She tried to lose herself in routine, arranging bouquets, trimming stems, humming along to the radio. But her mind kept drifting back to the night before. The handkerchief with the strange symbol was tucked safely in her pocket, a secret she couldn't let go. The bell above the door chimed, sharp and sudden. Eva looked up, expecting a regular customer, but instead, 2 men stepped inside. They were out of place in her cozy shop, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in tailored suits that whispered of money and danger. Their eyes swept the room, cold and assessing, before settling on her. "Miss Romano?" the taller one asked, his voice smooth but edged with steel. Eva's heart skipped. "Yes, can I help you?" He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "We're here about the fire last night. You were seen helping someone out of the building." The second man, silent and watchful, blocked the door. Eva's hands trembled as she set down her scissors. I just did what anyone would do. Is he all right?" The first man's smile faded. "That's what we're trying to determine." "The man you helped, did he say anything to you? Did he leave anything behind?" Eva shook her head, instinctively guarding the truth. "No, he was barely conscious. I don't even know his name." The men exchanged a glance. The second one stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. "Listen carefully," he said, voice low. "For your own good, forget what you saw. Don't talk to anyone about last night. Not the police, not your friends. Understand?" A chill ran down Eva's spine. She tried to steady her voice. "I don't understand. Why are you threatening me? I just helped someone." The first man leaned in, his cologne sharp and suffocating. "You're not in trouble yet, but you don't want to be involved with people like him. Or us. Keep your head down and this will all go away." Eva's mind raced. The men's confidence, their veiled threats, the way they moved as if they owned the room. It all pointed to something far bigger than a simple fire. She realized with a jolt that the man she'd saved was no ordinary victim. He was someone important, someone dangerous. She forced herself to meet their gaze. "I don't know anything. I just want to get back to work." The men studied her for a moment longer, as if weighing her words. Finally, the first man nodded. "Good. Keep it that way." They turned and left, the bell jangling in their wake, leaving the shop colder than before. Eva's knees threatened to buckle. She locked the door behind them, her breath coming in shallow bursts. The handkerchief in her pocket felt heavier than ever. She pressed her hand to it, desperate for reassurance, but found none. She tried to return to her flowers, but her hands shook too much to hold the stems steady. The men's warning echoed in her mind, mingling with the memory of the stranger's desperate grip. She wondered who he was, what he'd done to warrant such protection and such threats. The day dragged on, each customer's smile a fragile mask over her growing fear. She caught herself glancing at the door, half expecting the men to return, or worse, for someone even more dangerous to appear. Every shadow seemed to hold a threat, every unfamiliar face a potential enemy. By closing time, Eva was exhausted, nerves frayed to the breaking point. She double-checked the locks, drew the curtains, and sat behind the counter, clutching the handkerchief. The symbol stared back at her, a silent challenge. She knew she should let it go, pretend nothing had happened. just as the men had warned. But curiosity gnawed at her, stronger than fear. She needed answers. Who was the stranger? Why did he matter so much? And what had she stumbled into by saving his life? As darkness fell, Eva realized her world had changed forever. She was no longer invisible, no longer safe. Powerful men had noticed her, and their warning was clear. But as she stared at the handkerchief, she felt a spark of defiance. She wouldn't be intimidated. She wanted the truth, no matter the cost. And as the night deepened, Eva sensed that the real danger was only just beginning. Eva's nerves were still raw the next morning, her sleep fractured by dreams of fire and shadowy men in suits. She tried to lose herself in the rhythm of her shop, but every time the bell above the door chimed, her heart leapt into her throat. She kept the handkerchief close, hidden in her apron pocket, its strange symbol a constant reminder that her life was no longer her own. It was late afternoon when the world shifted again. The bell rang, but this time the air changed, charged, electric, as if the room itself was holding its breath. Eva looked up and froze. The man from the fire stood in her doorway, alive and whole, but different. He wore a tailored suit, his dark hair perfectly in place, his eyes sharp and assessing. There was no trace of the desperation she'd seen in the flames. Now he radiated power, the kind that made people step aside without a word. He closed the door behind him, the sound echoing in the quiet shop. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Eva's mind raced, cataloging every detail. The way he moved, the faint scar along his jaw, the intensity in his gaze. He was beautiful in a dangerous way, like a storm rolling in over calm water. "Eva," he said, his voice low and smooth, accented in a way that made her shiver. "I owe you my life." She swallowed, her throat dry. "You shouldn't be here. People are looking for you. They came to my shop, men in suits. They told me to forget everything." He smiled, but it was a cold, calculated thing. "My men, I assume. They were only doing their job. Protecting me, and now protecting you." Eva's confusion deepened. "Protecting me? From what?" He stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. "From the people who set that fire. From anyone who might want to use you against me. You saved me, Eva. That means you're under my protection now." She bristled, her fear mingling with anger. "I didn't ask for your protection. I just did what anyone would do." He shook his head, a hint of amusement in his eyes. "No, you didn't. Most people would have run. You risked your life for a stranger. That's rare. And dangerous." Eva's hands curled into fists. "Who are you?" He hesitated as if weighing how much to reveal. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card, placing it on the counter between them. The name was simple, elegant, Luca Romano. Beneath it a single word, consultant. But the symbol embossed in silver was unmistakable, the same wolf's head entwined with a rose. Her breath caught. You're him," he nodded. "I am. And now so are you, at least in the eyes of my enemies. They saw you save me. That makes you a target." Eva's world tilted. She stared at the card, then at Luca, trying to reconcile the man before her with the one she'd dragged from the fire. "What do you want from me?" He studied her, his gaze softening just a fraction. "Nothing except to keep you safe. My men will be outside at all times. You'll go nowhere alone. If anyone approaches you, you tell them nothing. If you need anything, you call me." He slid a second card across the counter, this one with a private number. Eva's pulse hammered in her ears. This isn't protection. It's a prison. Luca's expression darkened. "Call it what you like, but it's necessary. I won't let you get hurt because of me." She wanted to argue, to tell him to leave her alone, but the memory of the men in suits, their cold eyes and veiled threats, silenced her. She realized with a sinking feeling that she was already trapped. The only question was whether Luca was her jailer or her shield. He seemed to sense her turmoil. "I know this isn't fair, but I pay my debts, Eva, and I don't forget those who help me." She looked away, struggling to steady her voice. "What if I refuse?" He shrugged, a hint of regret in his eyes. "You can try, but my men will still be here. I can't risk your safety or mine." The shop felt smaller, the walls closing in. Eva glanced at the window and saw two men in dark suits standing across the street, watching. She realized escape was impossible. At least for now. Luca's tone softened. I'm not your enemy, Eva, I promise you that. But my world is dangerous. You stepped into it when you saved me. Now, I have to make sure you survive it. She met his gaze, searching for any sign of kindness beneath the steel. For a moment, she saw something. Pain, maybe, or gratitude. But it vanished as quickly as it appeared. He turned to leave, pausing at the door. If you need anything, call me. And Eva, be careful. Not everyone in my world is as honorable as I am. The bell chimed as he disappeared into the evening, leaving Eva alone with her fear, her anger, and a growing sense of unreality. She pressed her hand to the business card, the silver symbol cool against her skin. Was this protection or a gilded cage? She didn't know. But as the sun set and the shadows lengthened, Eva realized her life was no longer her own. And somewhere deep inside, a new question took root. What would she do now that the Mafia king had claimed her fate? The answer, she sensed, would change everything. Eva barely had time to process the new rules of her life before they were enforced. The next morning, 2 of Luca's men arrived at her apartment, their presence as unyielding as the steel in their eyes. They were polite but firm, giving her only minutes to pack a bag. Mr. Romano insists, one said, his tone leaving no room for argument. It's for your safety. Eva's protests fell on deaf ears. She tried to call her sister, but her phone was gently taken from her hand. No outside contact for now, the other man said, almost apologetic. It's best this way. The car that whisked her away was sleek and black, its windows tinted so dark she could barely see the city passing by. The silence inside was suffocating, broken only by the low hum of the engine and the occasional clipped conversation in Italian. Eva pressed her forehead to the cool glass, watching her old life recede into the distance. She felt like a ghost, untethered and invisible, swept along by forces she couldn't control. When the car finally stopped, Eva stepped out into another world. The estate was sprawling, surrounded by high stone walls and iron gates. Manicured gardens stretched in every direction, fountains sparkling in the morning sun. The house itself was a masterpiece of old-world elegance, arched windows, marble columns, and balconies draped in wisteria. It was beautiful, almost dreamlike, but the armed guards stationed at every corner shattered any illusion of safety. Inside, the luxury was overwhelming. Crystal chandeliers glittered overhead, and the air was perfumed with roses and something darker, more elusive. Eva was shown to a guest suite larger than her entire apartment, with silk sheets and a view of the gardens. Her suitcase was placed at the foot of the bed, and she was told to rest, to make herself comfortable. But comfort was impossible. Every window was barred, every door locked with a soft click behind her. Hours passed in a haze. Eva wandered the halls, her footsteps echoing on polished marble. She saw staff moving quietly, eyes averted, and guards who watched her with polite indifference. She felt both invisible and exposed, a guest and a prisoner. The opulence of the estate was a stark contrast to the tension that simmered beneath the surface. Every smile seemed forced, every gesture rehearsed. It was late afternoon when she finally saw Luca again. He found her in the library, standing before a wall of books she doubted anyone had ever read. He looked different here, more relaxed but no less dangerous. He smiled, a real one this time, and gestured for her to sit. I hope you're settling in, he said, pouring her a glass of wine. I know this is unusual. Eva took the glass, her hands trembling. Unusual? I feel like I've been kidnapped. Luca's eyes softened. I'm sorry. I truly am. But you're not safe out there. Not until I find out who's after me. And now, after you. She wanted to argue, to demand her freedom, but the exhaustion in his voice stopped her. For a moment, she saw the man from the fire, vulnerable and human, but the moment passed, and the mask of power slipped back into place. Their conversation was interrupted by a commotion outside. Shouts echoed through the courtyard, followed by the unmistakable sound of a struggle. Luca was on his feet in an instant, his expression hardening. Stay here, he ordered. But Eva was already moving, curiosity and fear propelling her forward. She reached the balcony just in time to see two men being dragged across the gravel by Luca's guards. One was bloodied, defiant, spitting curses in a language Eva didn't understand. The other was silent, his eyes wide with terror. Luca strode into the chaos, his presence commanding instant silence. He spoke quietly, but his words carried weight. The defiant man lunged, and in a blur of motion, Luca caught him by the throat, lifting him off the ground with terrifying ease. The man's bravado crumbled, replaced by panic. Luca's voice was cold, deadly. "You betray me. You pay the price." He released the man, who crumpled to the ground, gasping for air. The guards dragged both men away, their fate sealed. Eva's heart pounded. She had known Luca was powerful, but witnessing it was something else entirely. He was a force of nature, ruthless, unyielding, and utterly in control. Yet when he turned and saw her watching, his expression softened. He climbed the stairs to the balcony, his steps measured, his eyes searching hers for fear or revulsion. "I'm sorry you had to see that," he said quietly. "But this is my world, Ava. It's not gentle. It's not safe, but I will never let anyone hurt you." She wanted to believe him, but the image of his hand around the man's throat lingered in her mind. "You're not what I expected," she whispered. He smiled, a hint of sadness in his eyes. "No one ever is." That night, Eva lay awake in her gilded cage, the memory of violence and tenderness warring inside her. The estate was silent, but she knew danger lurked just beyond the walls. Luca was both her protector and her captor, his motives as mysterious as the world he ruled. She didn't know if she could trust him, but she sensed that trust might be the only thing keeping her alive. As dawn crept over the gardens, Eva realized she was no longer a bystander in Luca's world. She was part of it now, for better or worse. And as she drifted into uneasy sleep, she wondered what new secrets the estate, and its master, would reveal next. The days at the estate blurred together, each one marked by a strange blend of luxury and unease. Eva tried to keep her distance from Luca, but his presence was everywhere, his voice echoing in the halls, his scent lingering in the gardens, his shadow falling across her thoughts. She watched him from afar, searching for cracks in his armor, for any sign of the man she'd saved from the fire. But Luca was a master of masks, revealing only what he chose. One evening, as the moon rose full and bright over the estate, Eva found herself restless, unable to sleep. The air was thick with anticipation, as if the world itself was holding its breath. She wandered the halls, drawn by a strange compulsion, until she reached the edge of the gardens. The night was alive with the sound of crickets and the distant howl of a wolf. Eva shivered, wrapping her arms around herself, but curiosity pulled her forward. She followed the sound to a secluded clearing, hidden by tall hedges and ancient oaks. There, in the silver light, she saw Luca, alone, his back to her, his posture tense. He was speaking in low, urgent tones to a man Eva didn't recognize, their words sharp and hurried. The stranger's eyes darted nervously, and Eva caught fragments of their conversation. "They're getting closer. The pack is restless. You can't hide forever." Luca's reply was a growl, deep and inhuman. The stranger flinched, then melted into the shadows, leaving Luca alone. Eva stepped back, heart pounding, but a twig snapped beneath her foot. Luca turned, his eyes glowing gold in the moonlight. For a moment he looked more beast than man. "Eva," he said, his voice rough, barely human. "You shouldn't be here." She wanted to run, but her feet wouldn't move. "What are you?" she whispered, fear and fascination warring inside her. Luca hesitated, then stepped into the moonlight. His features shifted, the lines of his face sharpening, his body tensing as if fighting some internal battle. "You deserve the truth," he said, voice trembling. "I'm not just a man, Eva. I'm something else. Something dangerous." He closed his eyes, and before her stunned gaze, his form began to change. Bones cracked, muscles rippled, and fur sprouted along his arms. In seconds, the man she knew was gone, replaced by a massive wolf, powerful, majestic, and terrifying. The wolf's eyes met hers, and for a moment, Eva saw the same vulnerability she'd glimpsed in the fire. The beast was dangerous, yes, but it was also wounded, hunted, and alone. Eva's breath caught. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but she stood her ground, transfixed by the impossible truth. The wolf lowered its head, a gesture of submission, and then, just as quickly, the transformation reversed. Luca knelt before her, naked and trembling, his eyes filled with shame. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I never wanted you to see this. But you're part of my world now. You deserve to know what you're risking." Eva knelt beside him, her fear slowly giving way to something else. Compassion, maybe, or understanding. She reached out, her hand trembling, and touched his shoulder. His skin was warm, his breath ragged. "Why are you hiding?" she asked softly. Luca looked away, pain etched in every line of his face. "There's a rival pack. They want my territory, my power. They'll do anything to destroy me, and anyone close to me. That's why you're in danger, Eva. Not just because of the Mafia, but because of what I am." She absorbed his words, the pieces of the puzzle finally falling into place. The secrecy, the guards, the constant fear, it all made sense now. Luca wasn't just fighting for his life. He was fighting for his very soul. "Why tell me?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. He met her gaze, his eyes raw and honest. "Because you saved me, because you deserve the truth, and because I trust you, even if I shouldn't." Ava's heart twisted. She saw the man beneath the beast, the loneliness and longing that haunted him. She realized with a jolt that she wasn't afraid. Not really. She was fascinated, drawn to the darkness and the light inside him. "I don't know what to do with this," she admitted, her voice shaking. "But I won't betray you. I promise." Luca's relief was palpable. He reached for her hand, his touch gentle, almost reverent. "Thank you, Eva. That means more than you know." They sat together in the moonlit clearing, the silence between them filled with unspoken questions. Eva knew there were still secrets Luca hadn't shared, dangers lurking in the shadows, but for the first time, she felt a flicker of trust, a fragile bridge between suspicion and something deeper. As the moon climbed higher, Eva realized her world had changed forever. She was no longer just a bystander in Luca's life. She was part of his secret, bound to him by fate and choice. And as they walked back to the estate side by side, Eva wondered what other truths the night would reveal, and whether she was brave enough to face them. The night was thick with tension, the kind that made Eva's skin prickle, and her heart race for reasons she couldn't name. She tried to sleep, but every creak of the old estate, every distant howl kept her wide awake. The moon hung heavy and full outside her window, casting silver shadows across the marble floor. Eva rose and paced, restless, her mind replaying Luca's confession and the impossible truth she'd witnessed beneath the moon. Suddenly, a sharp crack shattered the silence. Shouts erupted from the gardens, followed by the unmistakable staccato of gunfire. Ava's breath caught. She rushed to the window and saw chaos below. Men in dark clothing scaling the walls, flashes of muzzle fire lighting up the night. The estate's guards fought back, but the attackers moved with unnatural speed and ferocity. Ava's blood ran cold. This was no ordinary assault. A pounding at her door made her jump. Luca burst in, eyes wild, his voice urgent. "Stay behind me. Don't let go of my hand." He pulled her into the hallway, his grip iron strong but careful, as if she might break. The sounds of battle grew louder, growls, snarls, the clash of bodies. Eva's mind reeled. She clung to Luca, her human fragility stark against the violence erupting around them. They raced down the grand staircase, dodging debris and fleeing staff. In the foyer, a massive figure blocked their path, a man with eyes like burning coals, his teeth bared in a feral snarl. "Romano," the intruder spat, his voice guttural, inhuman. "Your reign ends tonight." Luca stepped forward, shielding Eva with his body. "You'll have to go through me," he growled, his voice already shifting, deepening. The rival lunged impossibly fast and Luca met him head-on. Eva stumbled back, pressed against the wall, helpless as the two men collided with bone-crunching force. In the chaos, Eva saw Luca change. His body rippled, muscles expanding, bones shifting beneath his skin, Fur erupted along his arms, his hands twisting into claws. In seconds, the man she knew was gone, replaced by a towering wolf, powerful, savage, and utterly terrifying. The rival transformed as well, and the two beasts clashed in a blur of teeth and fury. Eva's heart hammered in her chest. She was frozen, unable to look away as the supernatural battle raged before her. Luca fought with a ferocity she'd never imagined, his movements a blend of grace and raw power. He drove the rival back, protecting Eva with every blow, every snarl. The enemy was strong, but Luca was stronger, driven not just by instinct, but by something deeper. A stray bullet shattered a vase inches from Eva's head, snapping her out of her trance. She ducked, crawling behind a marble pillar, her body trembling. She was painfully aware of her own weakness, her utter helplessness in a world of monsters and men. All she could do was trust Luca, hope that his strength would be enough to save them both. The fight spilled into the garden, the two wolves locked in a deadly dance beneath the moonlight. Eva watched, breathless, as Luca finally gained the upper hand, pinning his rival to the ground. With a final, thunderous roar, he sent the enemy fleeing into the night, wounded and defeated. Silence fell, broken only by Eva's ragged breathing and the distant wail of sirens. Luca shifted back, collapsing to his knees, bloodied but alive. He looked up at Eva, his eyes still glowing with the last traces of the beast. She rushed to his side, her hands shaking as she touched his face. "Are you hurt?" she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. Luca managed a weak smile. "I'm fine. You're safe. That's all that matters." Eva clung to him, her fear slowly giving way to relief. She had seen the truth of Luca's world, the violence, the danger, the power that set him apart. But she had also seen his courage, his willingness to risk everything for her. As the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, Eva realized she could never go back to her old life. She was part of this world now, fragile and human, but no longer afraid, and as Luca held her close, she knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. The estate was eerily quiet after the attack, the silence broken only by the distant hum of emergency vehicles and the soft rustle of wind through the shattered gardens. Eva sat on the edge of a marble fountain, her hands still trembling, the adrenaline slowly ebbing from her veins. The world felt fragile, as if one wrong move might shatter it all over again. She watched as Luca spoke quietly with his men, issuing orders, checking on the wounded, his presence a steady anchor in the chaos. But when he finally turned to her, the mask of command slipped, and she saw the exhaustion and pain etched deep in his eyes. He crossed the courtyard, his steps heavy, and sat beside her. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Eva stared at her hands, unsure how to bridge the gulf between what she'd witnessed and what she felt. Luca broke the silence first, his voice raw. "I'm sorry you had to see that. I never wanted you to be part of this." Eva shook her head, her voice barely above a whisper. "You saved me. I didn't know what you were risking." Luca looked away, his jaw tight. "I've been risking everything for a long time. But tonight it was different. I was afraid, not for myself, but for you." He hesitated, then met her gaze, his eyes haunted. "There's something you should know. Something I've never told anyone outside my family." She waited, heart pounding, sensing the weight of what he was about to share. "My father was the first to carry the curse," Luca began, his voice distant, as if recalling a story from another life. "He was a good man, but the wolf changed him. It made him powerful, yes, but it also made him dangerous. He tried to control it, to use it for good, but the darkness always crept in. When I was a boy, I watched him lose himself to the beast. I swore I'd never let that happen to me." He paused, his hands clenched in his lap. "But the curse is relentless. It's in my blood, in every breath I take. I fight it every day, but sometimes I'm afraid I'll lose, that I'll hurt the people I care about." Eva reached for his hand, her fingers gentle. "You're not your father, Luca. You saved me. You protected everyone here." He shook his head, a bitter smile on his lips. "You don't understand. The wolf isn't just a part of me. It's always hungry, always waiting. I have to be stronger than it every moment. That's why I keep people at a distance, Why I never let anyone get too close. A tear slipped down Eva's cheek. She understood now. The loneliness, the walls he'd built, the constant battle raging inside him. She saw the man beneath the beast, the boy who'd watched his father fall, the leader who carried the weight of an entire world on his shoulders. "I'm not afraid of you," she said softly. "I'm afraid of losing you." Luca's eyes widened, vulnerability flickering across his face. "You shouldn't love me, Eva. My world is full of shadows. I can't promise you safety, or peace, or even a future. All I can offer is the truth, and myself as I am." She squeezed his hand, her resolve hardening. "I don't want promises. I want you, all of you, even the parts that scare me." He let out a shaky breath, as if her words had lifted a burden he'd carried for years. "You're braver than I am," he whispered. They sat together in the moonlight, the ruins of the garden around them, the scent of roses mingling with the sharp tang of smoke. Eva leaned her head on Luca's shoulder, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath her cheek. For the first time since the fire, she felt safe. Not because the danger was gone, but because she was no longer facing it alone. Luca wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close. "I don't know what comes next," he admitted. "The rival pack won't stop. There will be more attacks, more danger. I can't ask you to stay." Eva looked up at him, her eyes shining with determination. "You don't have to ask. I'm not leaving." He smiled, a real, unguarded smile that made her heart ache. "Then we face it together." The night deepened, and with it, their connection. They talked for hours, about childhood memories, secret fears, and impossible dreams. Luca told her stories of his family, of the old country, of the legends that haunted his bloodline. Eva shared her own scars, her own hopes, her longing for a life that meant something more. As dawn approached, Eva realized she was no longer afraid of the shadows. She had found light in the most unlikely place, in the heart of a man who was both beast and protector, both king and captive. She knew the road ahead would be dangerous. That loving Luca would cost her more than she could imagine. But she also knew she couldn't turn back. As the first rays of sunlight crept over the horizon, Luca pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead. "Rest now," he murmured. "I'll keep watch." Eva closed her eyes, trusting him completely for the first time. She drifted into sleep, her fears eased by the warmth of his embrace. But even as she slept, a question lingered in her mind. Could she truly trust a man who lived in the shadows, whose very nature was a secret war? The answer, she knew, would shape both their destinies. And as the world outside stirred with new threats, Eva and Luca's bond, tested by fire, sealed by truth, became the only thing standing between them and the darkness yet to come. The days after the attack passed in a blur of repairs and whispered warnings. The estate was on high alert, guards doubled, every shadow watched. Yet beneath the surface, Eva felt a new sense of belonging, a fragile peace growing between her and Luca. She clung to it, savoring every quiet moment, every stolen glance. But peace, she would soon learn, was only an illusion. It began with a phone call. Eva was alone in the library, sunlight slanting through the tall windows, when the old landline rang. She hesitated, then answered, expecting one of Luca's men. Instead, a woman's voice, low and urgent, crackled through the line. "Eva Romano, listen carefully. We have your sister." Eva's blood ran cold. "What? Who is this?" "You know who we are. If you want your sister to live, you'll do exactly as we say. There's a flash drive hidden in Luca's study. Bring it to the old chapel at midnight. Come alone. If you tell anyone your sister dies..." The line went dead. Eva's hands shook as she clutched the receiver. Her mind raced. Her sister, innocent and far from this world, now a pawn in a deadly game. She wanted to run to Luca, to beg for his help, but the threat echoed in her mind. "If you tell anyone, your sister dies." Desperation drowned out reason. That night, as the estate settled into uneasy silence, Eva slipped from her room. She moved like a ghost, heart pounding, every step a betrayal. Luca's study was locked, but she'd watched him enter the code enough times to remember. Inside, The room was shadowed and still, the air heavy with secrets. She searched quickly, her hands trembling, until she found the flash drive hidden behind a row of old books. She clutched it to her chest, guilt gnawing at her. She told herself she had no choice. This was for her sister, for family, for survival. But as she crept through the halls, every memory of Luca's trust, his confessions, his gentle touch, weighed on her like a stone. The chapel was cold and empty, moonlight streaming through broken stained glass. A man waited in the shadows, his face hidden, his voice familiar. "Do you have it?" Eva nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "Where's my sister?" He smiled, cruel and satisfied. "She's safe, for now. Give me the drive." She hesitated, then handed it over, her heart breaking. The man slipped away, vanishing into the night. Eva stood alone, the silence pressing in, her betrayal complete. She returned to the estate, her steps heavy, her soul aching. She wanted to confess, to beg Luca's forgiveness, but fear held her tongue. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the world to fall apart. It didn't take long. The next morning, Luca's men discovered the breach. The study had been searched, the flash drive gone. Luca's fury was cold and quiet, his eyes hard as steel. He questioned everyone, but Eva kept her secret, her guilt growing with every lie. But Luca was no fool. That night he found her in the garden, his face shadowed, his voice gentle but unyielding. "Eva, look at me." She couldn't meet his eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. "They had my sister. I didn't know what else to do." Luca's expression crumbled, pain and betrayal warring in his gaze. For a moment, she thought he might turn away, might become the monster he feared, but instead he reached for her, his hands trembling. "You're the only one I can't let go," he said, voice breaking. "No matter what you've done." Eva sobbed, collapsing into his arms. "I didn't want to hurt you. I just wanted to save her." He held her tightly, his own tears silent. I know. But this will cost us both." The drive held secrets, things my enemies can use against me. Against everyone here. She pulled back, searching his face for anger, for blame, but all she saw was sorrow. "I'll fix it," she promised. "I'll do whatever it takes." Luca shook his head, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You can't fix this alone, but we'll face it together. That's what love means, Eva. Not perfection, not safety, just holding on, even when it hurts." She clung to him, her heart breaking and healing all at once. She had betrayed him, yes, but he refused to let her go. In that moment, Eva understood the true cost of love in Luca's world, a constant battle between loyalty and survival, trust and fear. As dawn crept over the estate, Luca led her inside, his arm around her shoulders. The future was uncertain, the threat of betrayal hanging over them like a storm. But Eva knew she would fight for him, for them, no matter the cost. And as the shadows lengthened, she realized that love, real love, wasn't about never making mistakes. It was about choosing each other again and again, even when the world demanded otherwise. The enemy had struck and she had faltered, but Luca's forgiveness was a lifeline she would never let go. Yet as they walked together into the uncertain morning, Eva couldn't shake the fear that the worst was yet to come. The rival's words echoed in her mind, a chilling reminder that in this world, every choice had a price, and some debts could never be repaid. The days that followed Eva's betrayal were a blur of tension and dread. The estate, once a sanctuary, now felt like a fortress under siege. Guards patrolled every hallway, and the staff moved in hushed, anxious clusters. Luca was everywhere and nowhere, giving orders, checking defenses, but always with a shadow in his eyes. He never spoke of the flash drive or the secrets it contained, but Eva could feel the weight of it pressing down on them both. She tried to help where she could, tending to the wounded from the last attack, offering comfort to frightened staff, but nothing could shake the sense that something terrible was coming. Every night, she lay awake beside Luca, listening to the distant howls that echoed through the hills, the warning calls of wolves gathering in the darkness. It happened just before dawn. Eva was in the kitchen making tea for a sleepless night when the alarms blared, shrill, urgent, unmistakable. She dropped the cup, porcelain shattering on the tile, and ran for the door. Outside, chaos erupted. The rival pack had come, not as men, but as monsters. Wolves with eyes like burning coals, their howl splitting the morning air. Luca met her in the hallway, his face grim, his body already tensed for battle. "Stay here," he ordered, but Eva shook her head, grabbing his arm. "No, I'm not hiding. Not this time." He hesitated, torn between fear for her and the need to protect his people. "Eva, I know what I did. Let me help you fix it. Please." For a moment, their eyes locked, and something unspoken passed between them. Then Luca nodded, pressing a silver dagger into her hand. "Stay close. Don't hesitate." They moved together through the chaos, dodging debris and fighting their way to the heart of the estate. The rival pack was everywhere, shifting between man and beast, tearing through the defenses with savage fury. Eva saw faces she recognized twisted into snarls, friends and enemies alike caught in the storm. She fought beside Luca, her fear burning away in the heat of battle. She slashed at a wolf that lunged for her, the silver blade singing through the air. Blood splattered her arms, hot and sticky, but she didn't stop. She couldn't. Every moment was a choice, fight or die, hope or despair. Luca was a force of nature, his wolf form towering and unstoppable. He tore through the enemy, protecting Eva with every move, but the rival alpha was waiting, a massive beast with scars crisscrossing his muzzle and hatred burning in his eyes. The two alphas clashed in the center of the courtyard, their roars shaking the earth. Eva watched, helpless as they circled each other, teeth bared, claws flashing. The rival was stronger, fueled by rage and the secrets stolen from the flash drive. He taunted Luca, his voice a guttural snarl. "You're weak, Romano. You let a human into your heart. That's why you'll lose." Luca lunged, but the rival was ready. They crashed together, a blur of fur and blood. Eva screamed as the rival slashed Luca's side, blood pouring from the wound. Luca staggered but didn't fall. He looked at Eva, pain and love mingling in his eyes. "Run!" he shouted, his voice raw. "Get out of here!" But Eva couldn't move. She saw the rival turn, saw the hunger in his eyes as he lunged for her. Time slowed. She remembered every moment with Luca, their first meeting, the secrets they'd shared, the promises made in the dark. She couldn't leave him. Not now. Not ever. With a cry, Eva threw herself between them, the silver dagger raised. The rival hesitated, surprised by her courage, and Luca seized the moment. With a final, desperate surge, he tackled the rival, driving the blade deep into his chest. The rival howled, thrashing, but Luca held on, refusing to let go. The courtyard erupted in chaos as the rival pack broke, their leaders' fall sending them fleeing into the dawn. Eva knelt beside Luca, her hands pressed to his wound, blood soaking her fingers. He was pale, his breath ragged, but he managed a weak smile. "You stayed," he whispered. Tears streamed down Eva's face. "Of course I stayed. I love you." Luca's hand found hers, his grip weak but steady. "I'm sorry. For everything. For dragging you into this." She shook her head, her voice fierce. "You didn't drag me. I chose this. I chose you." The sun rose over the ruined estate, painting the world in gold and crimson. The survivors gathered, their faces weary but hopeful. The enemy was gone, the threat broken, for now. But Luca's wound was grave, and Eva knew the fight was not yet over. The medics arrived, working quickly to staunch the bleeding, but Eva refused to leave Luca's side. She held his hand, whispering words of comfort, willing him to stay with her. Every second felt like an eternity, every breath a battle. As the hours passed, Luca drifted in and out of consciousness. Sometimes he spoke, his words feverish and broken. Memories of his father, promises to protect her, fears of the darkness inside him. Eva listened, her heart breaking, her love growing stronger with every confession. At dusk, the doctor pulled her aside, his face grave. "He's strong, but he's lost a lot of blood. If he makes it through the night, he might survive. But you need to prepare yourself." Eva nodded, her resolve hardening. She returned to Luca's side, pressing her forehead to his. "You're not leaving me," she whispered. "I won't let you." The night was long, filled with fear and hope, desperation and love. Eva never left Luca's side, holding his hand, watching over him as he had watched over her. She prayed to gods she didn't believe in, bargained with fate, offered everything she had for one more day with him. As dawn broke, Luca stirred, his eyes fluttering open. He looked at Eva, a faint smile on his lips. "You're still here." She laughed through her tears, relief flooding her. "I told you I'm not going anywhere." He squeezed her hand, his strength returning. "Then neither am I." The estate was battered, the future uncertain, but hope bloomed in Eva's heart. They had survived the final stand together. And as the sun rose on a new day, she knew that whatever came next, they would face it side by side. But deep down, Eva understood the truth. Love in Luca's world was never safe, never easy. It was a choice made in the face of fear, a promise kept in the darkest hour, and as she watched the light return to his eyes, she knew she would make that choice again and again, no matter the cost. The estate was a patchwork of scars and new beginnings. Days after the battle, the air still carried the scent of smoke and blood, but also the promise of something softer. Fresh paint, blooming roses, laughter echoing in the halls. The staff moved with a cautious hope, tending to wounds and rebuilding what had been lost. The rival pack had vanished into the shadows, their threat broken, but the memory of their violence lingered in every corner. Luca's recovery was slow but steady. He spent long hours in bed, his body healing, his mind restless. Eva rarely left, his side, reading to him from the library, coaxing him to eat, holding his hand through the worst of the pain. Sometimes, in the quiet moments before dawn, she would catch him watching her with a look she couldn't quite name. Something between gratitude and longing, fear and hope. But as Luca grew stronger, Eva felt the weight of her own choices pressing in. The world outside the estate called to her flower shop, her sister, the life she'd left behind. She missed the simplicity of her old routines, the comfort of anonymity. Yet every time she imagined leaving, her heart twisted with doubt. She had seen too much, changed too much. The woman who had once closed her shop at midnight and dreamed of safety was gone. One afternoon, as the sun slanted through the windows, Luca reached for her hand. His grip was warm, steady, but his eyes were shadowed. "You don't have to stay, Eva. You've given me more than I ever deserved. If you want to go back to your old life, I'll make sure you're safe. No one will ever bother you again." Eva looked at him, searching his face for the truth behind his words. She saw the pain he tried to hide, the fear of losing her, the love he was almost afraid to claim. "Is that what you want?" she asked softly. He shook his head, a sad smile tugging at his lips. "What I want doesn't matter. You deserve a life without fear, without looking over your shoulder. I can't give you that. All I can offer is this, me, this world, with all its danger and darkness. I won't blame you if you walk away." Eva stood, crossing to the window. The gardens below were alive with color, the first signs of spring pushing through the battered earth. She thought of everything she'd survived, the fire, the threats, the betrayals, the battles. She thought of Luca, the man and the wolf, the king and the captive. She thought of the way he had looked at her in the darkest moments, as if she was the only light he could see. Her old life was safe, predictable, but it was also small. Here, with Luca, every day was uncertain, every moment edged with risk. But it was also real, vivid, filled with a love that had been forged in fire and tested by loss. She turned back to him, her decision clear in her heart. "I don't want to go back," she said, her voice steady. "I want to stay with you. I want to build something new, even if it's dangerous, even if it's hard." Luca's eyes widened, hope flickering in their depths. "Are you sure? You know what this means." Eva nodded, crossing the room to kneel beside him. "I know exactly what it means. I'm not afraid. Not anymore. I choose you, Luca. I choose this life, with all its shadows and all its light." He pulled her into his arms, holding her as if he might never let go. For the first time since the battle, Eva felt truly at peace. The chaos had passed, the wounds were healing, and in their place was something stronger, a bond that could weather any storm. The days that followed were filled with small joys and quiet triumphs. Eva reopened her flower shop, with Luca's men watching discreetly from a distance. She visited her sister, who was safe and grateful, their bond stronger than ever. She returned to the estate each night, welcomed by Luca's embrace, by the laughter of friends who had become family. But the world was still dangerous. Rumors of unrest in the city reached them, whispers of new threats rising in the shadows. Eva knew their peace was fragile, that every day together was a gift. But she also knew she was exactly where she belonged. One evening, as the sun set over the gardens, Luca took her hand and led her outside. The air was warm, the sky painted in gold and violet. He knelt before her, his eyes shining with love and promise. "Whatever comes next, we face it together," he said. "You are my strength, Eva, my hope, my future." She smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "And you are mine." As darkness fell, they stood together beneath the stars, ready to face whatever the world might bring. Eva had made her choice, not out of fear, but out of love. She had found her place in the chaos, her heart in the hands of a man who was both beast and protector. And as the first stars appeared, Eva knew their story was far from over. The world outside was still full of danger, but inside these walls, she had found something worth fighting for, a love that could survive anything, even the darkness. Yet as the night deepened, a new question lingered in the air. Would their love be enough to withstand the next storm? The answer, Eva knew, would shape the rest of their lives. Spring settled over the Romano estate, softening the scars of battle with new life. Roses bloomed along the garden walls, their fragrance drifting through open windows. Laughter returned to the halls, cautious at first, then growing bolder as days passed without incident. Eva found herself at the heart of it all, tending flowers, sharing meals with the staff, and falling deeper into the rhythm of a world she'd once feared. Luca healed slowly, but his spirit was lighter. He walked the grounds with her each morning, his hand warm in hers, his eyes brighter than she'd ever seen. They spoke of the future, of rebuilding, of hope, of the family they might one day create. For the first time, Eva allowed herself to dream, to believe that happiness could grow from the ashes of chaos. Yet, beneath the peace, a current of unease lingered. The rival pack had vanished, but rumors drifted in from the city, whispers of alliances forming, of old enemies stirring. Luca's men remained vigilant, their eyes sharp, their weapons never far from reach. Eva tried to ignore the tension, to focus on the life she was building, but sometimes in the quiet hours before dawn, she felt the weight of unseen eyes. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in gold and crimson, Eva and Luca stood together on the balcony. The estate stretched out before them, peaceful and whole. Luca wrapped his arms around her, pressing a kiss to her hair. "We made it," he murmured, "against all odds." Eva smiled, leaning into his embrace. "We did, but it feels like something's coming. I can't explain it." He nodded, his jaw tightening. "I feel it too. But whatever it is, we'll face it together. I promise." As darkness fell, a chill crept through the air. Eva shivered, glancing toward the edge of the gardens. For a moment, she thought she saw movement, a shadow slipping between the trees, too tall, too still to be one of Luca's men. She blinked, and it was gone, swallowed by the night. Later, as they prepared for bed, Ava couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. She checked the locks, drew the curtains, but the unease remained. Luca noticed her tension, pulling her close. "You're safe here," he whispered. "No one will ever hurt you again." She wanted to believe him. She wanted to let go of fear, to trust in the sanctuary they'd built. But as she drifted into sleep, the image of that shadow lingered in her mind, a silent promise that their story was far from over. Outside, beneath the cover of darkness, a figure stood at the edge of the estate. Cloaked in black, face hidden, the stranger watched the house with cold, calculating eyes. In one gloved hand, he held a silver locket, its surface etched with the same wolf and rose symbol that had haunted Eva since the night of the fire. He turned the locket over, a cruel smile curving his lips. "Let them have their peace," he murmured, voice barely more than a breath. "It won't last." He melted into the shadows, leaving no trace but a lingering sense of dread. The estate was quiet, but the city beyond was restless, hungry for power, for vengeance, for blood. Old debts remained unpaid, old wounds unhealed. And in the darkness, new alliances were being forged. Alliances that would test everything Eva and Luca had fought to protect. Back inside, Ava woke from a restless dream, her heart pounding. She slipped from bed, drawn to the window. The gardens were still, bathed in moonlight, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. She pressed her hand to the glass, whispering a silent promise to herself and to Luca. Whatever threatened their peace, she would stand and fight. She was no longer the woman who ran from danger. She was part of this world now. Its beauty, its darkness, its endless risks. As dawn broke, painting the sky with hope and warning, Eva returned to Luca's side. He stirred, pulling her close. And for a moment, the world was simple again. Just the two of them, together against whatever might come. But outside, the shadows lengthened, and the mysterious figure watched and waited, patient as the night. The story was not finished. In truth, it was only the beginning. If you want to see what happens next, if you're ready for more secrets, more danger, and more of Eva and Luca's love, let us know in the comments. Your voice shapes this story. Are you ready for the next chapter?